We're here in this beautiful corner of the Cotswolds to help our friends at Operation Nightingale investigate a remarkable site discovered in 2016. The first find was of a young warrior who was buried in a richly furnished grave with weapons, including a sword with a silver pommel and a whole heap of feasting equipment. Then in 2019, another grave was discovered, this time apparently of a woman, with exotic amethyst beads. Now, geophysics seems to show that there's a large Anglo Saxon cemetery with perhaps some burial mounds, all set within a Roman landscape of fields and paddocks. So potentially, this site can tell us about how Anglo Saxon culture took over in the west of England in what had been one of the richest parts of Roman Britain. The cemetery lies near to Cherrington, a village in the beautiful Cotswolds, a few miles outside Cirencester, once the second largest city in Roman Britain. The Time team have been invited there to join their friends, the military veterans and volunteers of Operation Nightingale and Cotswold Archaeology, on a week-long excavation to try to make more sense of the cemetery site. Geophysics already carried out in this field shows a very complicated picture. Previous excavations have located early Anglo-Saxon graves among Roman walls and ditches. And the site is covered with anomalies, which may or may not be more Anglo-Saxon graves. I joined Richard Osgood of Operation Nightingale to make a plan for the week. So we've started behind us where the digger is with this trench here over the grave-like anomalies.
So we're starting with those burials to tie it in with the previous excavation, and that's why we've opened that one first. There's going to be a second trench which is over that really curious circular feature that's picked up on the geophysical.
And that's about there?
That's over there. We've marked it out and we'll get the digger onto that one. That's the second one. If we have time, then we'll go for what we presume to be a Roman building, but we've got such a bad weather forecast that I don't know whether they're going to achieve that. We're really up against it with the weather and the amount of time we've got.
So Trench 1 will open up an area around known Anglo-Saxon graves in the hope of finding more, while Trench 2 will transect a circular feature on the geophysics, which could be a burial mound. The cemetery was originally discovered in 2016 by local metal detectorist Chris Cuss.
As I dug down, got a big signal, I dug down, saw a strip of metal in the bottom of the hole, tried to follow it each way, thought this is going to be a sword.
So that was the first sign that there was something important going on in this field, that we had an early Anglo-Saxon cemetery here. That was the first moment you encountered
Yes, it's so near the surface, it was obviously going to be destroyed by the plough. They brought the team out, went down in that spot, and the rest, you know, they found a young man with the shield and sword and the dagger.
It transpired that Chris had located one of the most important early Anglo-Saxon burials ever discovered in Gloucestershire, that of a high-status young man, just 9 or 10 years old, richly buried in around 600 AD, with a sword, a shield, 2 spears, 2 glass vessels, and a knife. But it was the exquisitely patterned gilded silver sword pommel, later declared treasure, that made the headlines and gave rise to the nickname the Princely Burial. 3 years later, Operation Nightingale returned to the cemetery to recover the boy's remains. And during that same excavation, 2 further inhumation graves were discovered, an infant and a mature woman buried with amethyst beads and cowrie shells just a spear's throw from the Princely Burial. There are likely to be many more burials in this cemetery. Richard keeps a close eye on Trench 1, looking for signs of grave cuts in the soil. But it's a constant battle against the weather. The weather has really come in now. It's tipping off the tent roof. People are saying, why don't we just have a shower in this? Just a bit of shampoo and you could really, wash off all the mud. With rain holding things up, I decided to take advantage and head to Corinium Museum in Cirencester to find out more about the wealth of grave goods from the princely burial. Thank you very much, Philip, for getting all of these grave goods out for me. It's wonderful to see what we've been calling the princely burial actually out on a table, and we can get to grips with it.
And in terms of what we've got, there's sort of a little bit of, well, a lot of pieces of sort of copper bowl, copper sheet, something there. There's a shield boss in here. There's a very nice but very broken glass vessel in these pieces here that has sort of all this kind of wonderful decoration on. There's part of a sword and also part of a spear as well, and 2 spear ferrules over there as well. But sort of really kind of one of the main things that we were sort of very drawn to was kind of this wonderful silver gilt pommel.
Now this is an interesting thing because it's very differently decorated on both sides, isn't it? But you see the steps.
Okay, yeah. Did see those, yeah.
Which is very like a cloisonné design. Cloisonné means cell work, and this technique was used to set garnets into gold on the most elaborate of Anglo-Saxon sword pommels. But this silver example simply appears to mimic the cloisonné pattern. And that looks really like something that would have been made in golden garnets.
It does, yeah. So sadly, no garnets on this one.
No. No, which is making me think maybe it's like the kind of second tier down slightly.
Yeah, it could be something like that, yeah.
This is fantastic though, isn't it? I mean, a battered old shield boss, but there on the top, a silver disc that's still, I mean, it's just clinging on, isn't it?
I know. You can sort of see it peeling off there, but it's still just about on. And that's great, and just kind of sort of adds to sort of the flashiness that this grave would have had of sort of all these kind of sort of wonderful little bits that, you know, I mean, that's not functional. You know, it's purely for decoration.
Yes.
So
if you've got a shield and you're holding it and you're hitting somebody in the face with it, the fact that it's got a silver decoration on it is neither here nor there.
Doesn't matter.
No. The thing that I find most extraordinary is this glass, because I never see glass in my day job, and it is not just glass, it's coloured, decorated glass.
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely phenomenal for us because we have quite an extensive Anglo-Saxon collection here at the museum, but we don't have any Anglo-Saxon glass at all. So we're quite proud of that.
Is that thought to be a cone beaker?
Yes, it is.
One of these ones that's got a pointed bottom, so you cannot put it down. You have to pass it from person to person.
Exactly.
Cone beakers were high-status objects made from transparent and sometimes coloured glass. Often they were decorated with trails where coloured glass was wound around the vessel in molten form. I mean, I never, ever see things like this. It is just such a thrill to hold it and think, well, gosh, a real Anglo-Saxon drank out of that. And it's quite evocative of not just the warrior in their role as a fighter, but the warrior in their role as a feaster as well. Yes. Because that's the thing you get in these very high-status warrior graves is weapons and feasting equipment.
Exactly, yeah. You know, sort of it's that very Beowulf thing, isn't it? Of sort of, you know, fighting monsters and drinking in mead halls. Yes,
what an exciting group of objects. And are very appropriate for Operation Nightingale. That here we have the remains of a warrior, however young the bones appear to be. He's being buried as a warrior,
indeed,
with all the accoutrements that you need, and has been excavated by warrior. Despite the downpours, progress has been made in Trench 1.
Matt, you made great progress by the looks of things, but have you found anything?
But we've just exposed the modern backfill, but from a Saxon burial we found in 2019.
Oh, that's the one with the adult female we dug before?
That's correct, yeah.
Brilliant. And she was the one with the amethyst beads, the spindle well, and the antler point or something, wasn't it? Yeah,
correct,
brilliant.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So we know exactly where we are on the site, but have you got anything new?
Well, it's exciting news. We've got more archaeological features turning up, but we've got this more browny soil, which is a fill within what we think is another grave.
That's really quite clear, though, isn't it? It's a dark colour. Yeah, that's good.
So it ends here, and it's about that wide.
Right. Anything else?
Yes, we have more.
Oh, more. Good, good.
Over here, you see this yellow flag. It's at the end of another potential grave, but it's very much smaller. It
So it
ends
just stops
here.
there. So that's really small. So
Yeah.
what are you thinking? That's child burial?
It could be a child burial.
Okay. Well, I'm guessing that the fact you've got 3 flags.
We have another
There's-
one,
there's
Richard.
another
Yes,
thing as well,
we do.
good,
That's
okay.
correct. If you have a look over here, the flag is in the middle of another potential burial, much larger than the previous one we've just seen. It ends here and here, and it's slightly wider. You can see the colour. It's very
That's
brown.
really nice. That's really clear, isn't it? Going through the limestone and then through the yellowy orange stuff, and there's a big brown layer. That's nice and clear.
Yeah, very clear.
That's great. I mean, that's really exciting.
That's right.
So tomorrow, what, the aim to finish the square?
Yes, tomorrow morning we'll finish the excavation area. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's fantastic progress. First day. Really good. And let's see what we get tomorrow.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Good morning. Now, last night the rain was absolutely biblical, and you can see the effect of it here. We've got a quagmire in front of this tent. The mud appears to run entirely all the way through into the sleeping area, and it's no better up in the trenches. Ooh, all that rain last night. You know, we wanted some rain to make the site clean, and in fact, our features, our possible graves, are beautifully clean. You can really see them. But in this corner of the site, the rain has just created huge puddles. We're going to have to sponge those out, bail them out, and then hoping for a bit of a drying wind. But looking at where the wind's coming from, that's the next rain shower on the horizon. So it's going to make life difficult today, but we're going to have a really good go. The digger extends trench 1 to cleanly encompass the probable grave cuts, and the surface water is sponged out. Jackie then oversees digging in trench 1 by hand. In the damp conditions, it should be easy to see the edges of the grave cuts, but excavating the cloying mud is difficult. Although Jackie's expert eye has spotted something in the sticky clay.
Rather than take it, oh, that's another piece. And then bring it in here. Okay. I want to see how far this extends, whether it's just a tiny amount.
There's a lump there, you wonder whether that's
In this bit of the grave. Oh, look, there's some more bits there, look. Yeah, look, that's another piece.
Somewhat surprisingly, I've just found some bits of cremated bone in the upper fill here.
On the smaller of the grave cuts.
Yeah, well, there's also bits of fuel ash in there, just around that area there. So I think what we're going to do is we'll whole earth recover this. So,
But this is really exciting because cremation's this far west in the Anglo Saxon period. I mean, this is really far west.
they didn't necessarily cremate here. Unless you burnt your fingers, you haven't found a cremation, because that obviously is the primary part of the mortuary rite, where you are burning the corpse. What you do with those remains afterwards, a bit like now, you can actually separate them into different packages of material. So that might be what's happened here. We've got only some of it, but for some reason it's been put together with this inhumed individual. They could have cremated somebody far across to the east, carrying it around with them. You know, I mean, I've got some of my dad's bone. You know,
Only you,
And
Jackie, would have that. Only you.
He was cremated in Yorkshire.
You see, you're bucking the trend, though, aren't you?
Yeah, I know. But, you know, if you can think of to do this sort of thing now, people in the past potentially would as well. There are cases where I found a bit further across towards the east in Wiltshire, where we've had inhumation graves that have had some cremated bone in them. And sometimes, well, it was at one site, there were deliberate packages of cremated bone that had been placed above the inhumed individuals. Now, if you think that cremated bone, it's fragmentary. You could divide it. It's divisible. It's portable, so you can carry it around for any length of time with you before you eventually bury it. So it's going to be interesting to see how much there is here, because this could be what I classify as something called a memento mori deposit, where you've kept some bone from an earlier cremation burial, or the earlier cremation, should I say, and you carried it around until you want to bury it with somebody to whom they were related. But why have they done that? That's the interesting question. Why have they done that? And how long ago? What's the difference in date between the cremated bone and the inhumed bone, because like I say, you can carry cremated bone around for a while, and we know from some of the investigations that have been done that up to 10, 20 years has been found between deposits and that curation above ground of cremated bone. So it's really quite intriguing that we found this here now.
But this is fascinating. This is, you know, this is the first bits of excavation on this cemetery this year, and already you've got complexities and some really interesting evidence already. Brilliant.
As Jackie tries to make sense of the cremated bone in Trench 1, the digger crosses the field to make a start on a second trench. Trench 2 is going in over a distinct circular feature on the geophysics. With a strong anomaly in the centre, it could be another grave, once covered by a burial mound. And immediately, datable evidence comes up, although it's not 7th century.
So we got archaeology just turning up there, but we have to obviously machine more to find the extent of the archaeology, but it's a nice piece of saviour as well.
As further downpours are mopped up, Jackie and I head into the dry to look at the bones and grave goods from the previous excavation in 2019. Jackie, now this is the skeleton from the second grave that was excavated here in 2019, the one with the amethyst beads.
Yeah.
And there's always been a feeling that we're not quite sure what sex the skeleton is, hasn't there? And now you've had a chance to look in detail. What's your view?
Well, I can see why the ambiguity is there, because it helps if you've got a complete skeleton, but you can see how fragmentary it is. For instance, you're missing the entire spine.
Yeah, and all the ribs. I've filled them up with grave goods.
I mean, and you can see the skull. I mean, I put a few bits together, but...
And is that because it's been mechanically pressed down by the stones, or is that because of the chemical nature of the soil, or both?
It's a combination of things. Obviously, we're in quite acid soils, so that affects the bone preservation. That's where the trabecular bone, that open, spongy bone, starts to break down. But having said that, I would probably say it's going more towards the female than the male. This mandible is actually quite small, so we're looking at the lower part of the jaw. It's quite small, but other areas that I've looked at, for instance, the supraorbital area, this area here, it's not very marked, but it's flat. You've got a flat brow. You haven't got those brow ridges.
Oh, flat this way?
Yeah,
yes,
it's
so
flat
if I run
across
my hands up through my eyebrows, so to speak, I can't feel much ridge.
Yeah, you haven't got any brow ridges there, which is a masculine trait. And the other area that I've put together, you might have to believe me here, but this is the back of the skull, which is where you've got major muscle attachments from the neck going up. And there's no marked muscle attachment there, which suggests to me that this is female.
Well, I'm rather glad about that because she's certainly been buried in a way that only a woman would be buried. Right. So she's got a necklace of what we can see here is 5 beads, 2 amethyst, and 3 cowrie shell. And that is what I mean by a rich necklace. It may not be particularly showy, but all of these things have come from a long way away. These have come from the Red Sea, that's where cowries are native to, and these have come from the Eastern Mediterranean. Not necessarily in the Anglo Saxon period, they could have been reused Roman things. But then moving on down, she's got, I think that's the central piece from a set of linked pins. She's also buried with a spindle whorl.
Yeah, the spindle whorl.
So that's emblematic of a woman's job of clothing her family, creating all the cloth, spinning and weaving.
So it's, in a way, that might not necessarily be used, it's symbolic.
Yes, exactly. Right. And then she's got a knife, which everybody has. That doesn't say anything. So the whole thing is, to me, I would just say that's a woman. And we don't have the same kind of continuum between male and female that you get in the bones. And intriguingly, the previous excavation discovered more than the bones of this individual.
Now, I've been going through some of the samples from this, not all of which have been processed yet. And lo and behold, I found small pieces of burnt or cremated bone that have come out. They are quite tiny. So we've got a continuity of this turning up in most of our Anglo-Saxon graves that we've investigated so far.
Yes, so we've now got 3 graves that have got burnt bone in them as well.
Yeah, that we know of. Yeah. So yes, that's this one. But of course there was the grave with all the child with the sword. Yeah, and I will show you why I haven't laid that one out.
Oh,
right, OK.
goodness.
You can see it's not, it's small, it's fragile, it's not in very good condition.
All the teeth are lovely.
Yeah, the teeth are lovely because that's the tooth enamel's all mineral, so it survives better. But that's really, really useful because the teeth allow us to age the individual quite closely because they develop and erupt at certain times. And also, at the moment, this has been assumed, it's been called a princely burial. And the assumption might be, from the stuff that's in there, that this would be a boy, but we don't actually know. But there is a technique called peptide analysis that is non-destructive, that will enable us, looking at some of the proteins that are in that tooth enamel, it gives you a signal of the biological sex. So I think that would be worthwhile doing just to check our assumptions.
In spite of the heavy rain, Operation Nightingale's volunteers keep calm and carry on. They are emptying the previously excavated grave from 2019, and with bones starting to emerge from 3 new grave cuts, we can say with certainty that we are looking at inhumations. Across the field, Trench 2 is starting to reveal its own features, but it's starting to feel more complex than a simple burial mound.
Richard, hello.
Give me an update.
Okay, well, we were looking for a circular ring ditch. Well,
Yep.
we've got it. You've got it here, the yellow natural here, but it's altogether more complicated than we thought it might be.
Oh, OK.
I was expecting, what, a 7th century burial perhaps, or maybe a Bronze Age thing?
Yeah, it was just a ring with a blob.
It is.
What's it turned
it's still
into?
got that, but it's got all manner of other complexities, which is exciting, but tricky. So we've got the ditch coming really
Yep.
nicely here.
Right.
There are what look like Roman pits, either cutting it or being cut by,
What makes you think it's Roman?
because we're getting some really nice Roman pottery from it, like that one.
Oh, that's huge. Look at that. That's amazing.
And that's just one of many sherds we're getting.
Underneath the mud, is that Samian ware?
Yes, I think so. So we're getting that. We might have to extend it to get the full extent of
Okay,
that ditch, so that's
okay.
tomorrow's job. It's coming along here in a circle. You might have to take my word from it.
Yep.
It needs a clean.
Right.
There are post holes as well. So there's a little post hole here.
Yeah, got
so
you.
There's another structure, but the real excitement is this.
That's the thing in the middle.
Thing in the middle, it looks like a burial, but there's a huge, long, pink stone on it.
I have to tell you that burials with huge, long pink stones on them are not common in the Anglo Saxon period. This is a surprise. What is going on, Richard? Why have you got a huge, giant pink stone in the
I don't
middle
know,
of
we're
it?
coming up with all sorts of theories. Is it a grave marker? Is it a sarcophagus? Is it nothing to do with it? Is it part of a Roman building that's been reused? We don't know. So tomorrow we've got to extend in 2 ways, clean it up and hopefully get you some answers.
That is absolutely extraordinary.
It could be sensational.
Join a thriving worldwide community of Time Team fans on Patreon.
Our new target is to reach 15,000 worldwide supporters on Patreon by the end of 2025. This will enable us to continue expanding the Time Team world with more digs and greater access than ever before.
I've just woken up at Cherrington and had to park my camper down in the farmyard because, well, the rain. The site was incredibly muddy. But something feels a bit different today. Let's have a look. Oh, blue skies.
Derek has come to lend an expert hand interpreting the landscape. But first things first.
Look at this, George has got his kettle on.
Yeah, it's time for coffee. Can't stop really without my coffee.
Oh, pro. Gents, you all right? Hello, Richard, how are you? Look at this, cup of coffee in hand, cup of coffee in hand. Everyone getting out of their tents now?
The change in the weather has lifted spirits. And in Trench 1, the Operation Nightingale volunteers are exposing more of the skeletons in the 3 new grave cuts. Along with the grave from 2019, observations suggest we are looking at an adult, an infant, and a child.
I'm Emma Campbell and I am serving soldier attached to 4 Brigades in Catterick. So this is an infant burial. It's quite challenging. It's very, very fragile. It's damage. So it's a lot of sort of picking away and trying to be as careful as possible to not lose anything, because it's all so tiny.
And you're taking samples of everything?
Yeah, we are. We're just taking samples from around the skull area in case I miss anything, or, you know, so we can capture everything, really.
Brian and Bryony slowly expose the adult skeleton, while Mark is carefully exhuming the child.
My name's Mark, I'm a veteran, and I'm here as part of Operation Nightingale.
Mark, what a fantastic feature.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it?
So how does being on an archaeological site like this differ from your previous career?
Well, I'm an operating department practitioner by profession, so I'm used to working with, obviously, patients that are alive, which obviously gives me a background on the anatomy and physiology, which helps in this sort of particular setting. But I find actually being out in archaeology, it's great because you're using mindfulness, and it's a grounding, grounds you, and being out in nature as well. You know, what could be better?
And you mentioned mindfulness, and I personally find the doing of archaeology is such a positive thing for one's mental health. Is that something you see amongst yourself and the other veterans on site?
Yeah, you find people become sort of really focused on what they're doing, so they're totally in the zone and totally concentrating on the job. So anything else is driven out of your mind, which is the whole point of mindfulness.
Right. Well, you've got some serious work to do here. Yes. But I can't wait to see it, so I'll let you get on with it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
This project is about more than just the archaeology, isn't it?
Yeah.
What is Operation Nightingale?
Well, this is a programme we started in 2011, and it was put together to provide, I suppose, respite in many ways for members of the armed forces, and using archaeology as that maxim. And, you know, people do things like, I don't know, acting or gardening or painting, and actually archaeology's got all of those, hasn't it? It's got all those different facets to it, and it works perfectly for it. And the reason we were asked to do this is because we had a corporal in one of the infantry regiments who was in quite a dark place. He'd been badly wounded in action, and he was going to have to leave the military. And the only thing that was keeping him going was watching Time Team.
Oh, amazing.
So he really enjoyed that, and he was asked whether we could put together an archaeological programme on the Ministry of Defence Estate, because it's very large, and we have a lot of archaeology, and it's gone from there, and it's gone great guns, I suppose, if you're excusing the pun, but yeah, it's gone really well.
I can see a few familiar faces up there, so you must get people coming again and again and again. What's it like for these guys to be part of the Nightingale family?
That's a good question, and what's great for them is that they'll recognise friends when they come back to the different excavations, and they'll have friends of friends if they don't know one another. And I think that's the crucial thing for me, because archaeology's got all these jobs we talk about. You can do the digging, you can drive the machine, you can do the recording, you can work on the conservation work, but the key thing in the middle of that is friendship. And of course, Time Team's part of that now. You are part of our family group, a little friendship group, and that's really important as well. So it isn't just my face that they see all the time, it's all the other people that have been really generous over the years in offering their support to the programme, and their experience and their knowledge, and we've got some great people here.
Trench 2 needs to be extended by several metres to reveal the complete circle of what could be a ring ditch. The pink stone in the middle continues to puzzle everyone and may yet prove to be a grave. But Cotswold Roman expert Neil Holbrook isn't convinced.
Hello, Neil. Hello. So you found this really intriguing thing. Have you got any thoughts at all about what this might be?
Well, you've got this line of stones which are been subjected to intense heat. So normally limestone's white, like you see over there. But now this is red. You've got this line of stones. You've perhaps got a start of a second line of stones.
On a bit by your foot, maybe.
And another one there. So potentially you've got a flue running through here. And then perhaps this could be where the furnace or the fire is.
So we might get slag in here as well?
See, I think that...
it's got green.
Green, which is usually copper,
Okay, yeah, copper armour, something, okay.
But why did you dig here in the first place?
Well, the geophysics was really good for here, and you could see the trench we're in here, and you've got this circular feature in the middle of it, with that central element. Now, was it a prehistoric burial mound? Was it a 7th century burial mound? What we didn't think about Or it might be a Roman industrial purpose.
Yeah, I think it could well be Roman. I mean, I was looking at some of the pottery which has come out of the machining off the top, and you know, this is classic sort of Roman bowl, sort of 2nd, 3rd century AD.
However confusing, Trench 2 is at least producing dating evidence. Over in Trench 1, there are no signs yet of any grave goods, but bones and teeth can tell their own story.
Getting on really quickly.
Yeah, they're doing a great. But it helps. It's not raining on us anymore, for goodness sake. But what we're doing at the moment is we're exposing the outside of the skeleton. You can get down to the base of the grave, which we have done there, where Bryony is, and that lets us see whether there's any grave goods in there around the skeleton. So if we, at the end of the day, can get that all done, the idea is then we do the detail tomorrow, because the detail is going to require quite a lot of care. But you can see we've got the legs, we can see the top of the skull there, we've got the mandible and the maxilla just showing through. And I had a quick look at that, and that looks, the amount of wear to the teeth suggests that this is a youngish adult, probably late 20s, early 30s. Plus there may also be, sometimes might be very small artefacts in there. There might be very small beads.
Tiny beads,
difficult to see. So we'd have to make sure that we collect everything that we can.
So we've got an adult in their prime here, say?
Yeah, it's a youngish adult, I would think. But when I say young, I mean, you know, sort of late 20s, early 30s, judging from what I can see of the teeth.
Trench 2 is suggesting that the Romans were using this field long before the Anglo Saxons were burying their dead here. But what attracted them to this place?
Neil, we've obviously been drawn here with the 7th century stuff, but this is a rich landscape, and I know there was talk of maybe a Roman structure before, so where are we in Roman Britain?
Well, you're in one of the heartlands of Roman Britain. I mean, the Cotswolds are one of the richest parts of the whole Roman province. It's a place where you get villas with mosaics and wall plaster and underfloor heating. You perhaps get a density of those villas like you don't find it anywhere else in Britain. So a bit like now you think of the Cotswolds, fancy houses, a Chipping Camden set, you know, it was the place to be in later Roman Britain. And stone houses, where did the money come from? That's a harder question, but it is very agriculturally fertile, the Cotswolds. As you can see, we've got this amazing open landscape of rolling hills. Obviously, in the medieval times, people thought about sheep farming, and that's where the wealth of the Cotswolds came in medieval times. Roman times as well, perhaps. I think looking at the animal bones that turn up on Roman sites, you tend to get more sheep, perhaps, than you would find other parts of the country. So I think you just think of a very fertile agricultural landscape, which must have been attractive to the Romans then, as it is to us now, and a nice place to live with a pretty important Roman town not too far down the road.
Cirencester just up the road.
You are close enough to Cirencester that you could get into town and back in a day. So yeah, it's a good location.
Obviously, a bit of a gap between our 7th century burials and the Romans. Do we know what was happening in that period?
In the 4th century AD, so the very last part of the Roman period, the Cotswolds had their greatest period of wealth. And yet, after that, we see virtually nothing for a couple of 100 years. So we probably would imagine the largest population decline probably our country has ever seen, perhaps greater even than after the Black Death, for perhaps 100-200 years, because the Saxon burials that you're finding now date to the early 7th century, so the early AD 600s. And what was happening in that period between? So for the best part of 200 years, the population is virtually invisible. I mean, there must have been people living here, but they went back to a subsistence agriculture, one of perhaps small timber-built houses and just a bit of low-level mixed farming. But they didn't have pottery, and because pottery is what us archaeologists, you know, that's what we need.
With the site not yet giving up its secrets, Derek heads into the adjoining fields to look for clues.
In the absence of the legendary Stuart Ainsworth, the team have asked me to have a little look around our site and see if there are any indications in the landscape about what could have drawn people here, why the Romans were here, why the Saxons were here, and what makes this landscape so interesting. And the first thing that has caught my eye is the topography itself. We're on what feels like a fairly prominent ridge. It doesn't look like much, but we've got amazing views around the landscape. And I had a quick look at the LiDAR just now, and it seems like this ridge carries on along the hedge lines. And what I want to do is, if I can, walk along the top of the ridge and see if there are any other prominent points in the landscape that may have drawn people to them in the past.
And while Derek is off chasing hedgerows, Brian and Bryony have found something in the adult's grave that might help us date it.
Oh, what's that?
Is this a metal?
Blimey.
Metal there?
There is.
Yeah.
There is. Oh, how far does that go then? It's not much of it, is there?
Try it. Oh, look, it's come right to the end here, look. You see?
Yeah, I'll gently
And
brush
it's really
that off there.
Yeah.
Oh,
And-
wow.
Oh, that is great. Yeah, that's it.
Wow.
And that blade there is actually still quite, it looks
So-
quite pointed.
That is a knife then, is it?
Yeah.
I've just got to the northernmost edge of our ridge, and much like where our site is, it is a stunning location, almost 360 views of the surrounding landscape. And if we look just down over here, the HER shows us that there's Iron Age settlements, enclosed settlements, activity, there are medieval ridge and furrows, so this whole landscape has a rich and long history. So many stones here. It's really, really stony, and there are stones everywhere. I've not found any pot yet, but I have found something perhaps more interesting. And I've lost it again. Here we go. This is metallurgical slag, probably from iron smithing. This is a smithing half bottom. So the bit that you get at the base of a blacksmith's forge when you're working iron, and there is loads of it here. Let me see if I can find some more, a little bit more there. Oh, that has a bit of stone. Here we go, more slag. So Neil thinks we have a furnace up in the trench. I don't think it is. I think it's probably reused half stones or stones from a furnace which have then been used to mark a grave. However, there is metallurgy happening on this hillside, which is really exciting. I didn't expect to find that.
By the afternoon of day 3, the knife in the adult's grave is fully exposed. So, Jackie, where are we at with this grave?
Well, they've nearly finished uncovering the whole of the skeleton. As you can see, they're still cleaning up the middle part of the body, and in doing that have revealed the grave good, which is a knife, which would have been worn by the individual, obviously, and we've just got the top to go. So we're not quite going to get this finished today, but certainly early tomorrow morning it'll be ready to be photographed and lifted.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And earlier on when I came past, there seemed to be a bit of curving iron that was maybe the frame of a buckle.
I believe where Bryony is, I think it's been lifted now. Is that right, Bryony? Yeah, she's nodding. That there was a buckle there, and actually that would tie up with that knife
being on a belt.
Being on a belt, and obviously a bit skew-if because it's pointing up towards the outer side of the rib cage, but it was obviously on top of the body because it overlaying one of the lowest ribs.
Yes, so he's lying with one arm down, one arm to the side, and the head turned right round, isn't he? Knives were functional tools, forged from iron, with handles of wood or bone. But knife shapes don't change much in the Anglo Saxon period, so on their own they can't precisely date a grave. Can you tell anything else about him?
Well, the other, you're calling him a him for a start, which is quite noticeable and well done, because I think it is a male.
Yes, well, I was kind of assuming and hoping it was, because I think it's such a perfect match to our woman here with the amethyst beads and the cowrie shells and the link pins, because she's buried in such a demonstrative way, showing us lots about her.
Yeah.
And I always hope that these burials that just have a knife and a buckle, that are showing us so little about them, they represent the kind of invisible men, because men are so difficult to see in this end of the 7th century final bit of furnished burial. Men seem to kind of give up on furnished burial a lot earlier than women, and all they bother with is a bit of a buckle and a bit of a knife. It's not very much, is it, for anybody to have sent them into the next world with?
Or it could be that, you know, my wife can have all the fancy stuff. I'm comfortable as I am, and you're, like you say, advertising myself in a slightly different way.
That was exquisitely done. All right, sleep well.
Morning, thank you, yes. Thank you.
So what are you looking forward to today?
Exposing more of that. That's what we're on today, so that we can see the full extent of the remains, and then see what else it might throw up and offer us.
Fantastic. Reckon there's going to be anything in there? Any grave goods?
Well, we're hoping so. We really are hoping so, because that will be just brilliant. That will be just brilliant. But it's nice to have seen it in the extent of it, and obviously the original geophys was right, and we've got right down on it, quite shallow, which is great.
Richard.
Yes, hello.
Trench 2, what are we looking forward to today?
Finding out what on earth is going on, I think, is the real answer. I mean, you've got so many different theories with this thing. Is it going to be a prehistoric circle? Is it going to be a 7th century burial? Is it going to be an industrial site? Is it a roundhouse? I mean, we don't know is the answer. There's lots of pottery to say there's a Roman element to it. What is that thing in the middle? So we've got to clean it up, maybe get some information.
Fantastic. If you had to put your money on what it's going to be?
I'm going to stake out saying it's going to be 7th century.
7th century. Little slightly offset grave in the middle.
Yeah, I'm going for that at the moment, but it'll change within about 2 hours.
Fair play, I'll take that.
Several diggers have been transferred across from Trench 1 to lend a hand, and Matt is bringing the extended team up to speed.
Yeah, morning everyone. For those that haven't seen this area, you can clearly see that there is something quite special going on in this trench. Keeping it simple, we have this large circular ditch. It's very narrow. Is it a ditch or is it a construction cut for a building? We don't know yet. Here we have these pits. We have a concentration of Roman pottery here, so just take your time cleaning around that. Don't just pull the pot out at the moment. As I walk around this circular enclosure, you'll see, the more you look, we've got these patches of soil which it's actually filled within smaller features. And they are what we think at this stage are post holes going around the outside, just making it more and more interesting, whatever this is. But the business end, the really exciting part, is this elongated feature. It looks like a pit. Is it a grave? Is it something else? Our first job of the day, for those that aren't experienced, is what we're going to do is brush and trowel back, get this area clean, and we'll start from this end. It's quite a wide area, so we'll just space out every couple of metres. But if you're happy just to start this end, and we'll work back this way.
And I hate to do this, but they've only got 3 days left to do it.
Working backwards in a line, the plan is to clean the trench, leaving a pristine surface for recording before digging deeper. Meanwhile, in Trench 1, Jackie is making sense of the 3 new graves.
That's another bit. That might be more mandible. All right, that's a tooth. So I was going to tooth one. That might be another bit of mandible, look.
Do you want it in the same bag?
Yeah, so just pop that in the same bag.
We now believe the adult buried with the knife was male. The infant in the smallest grave has not been sexed, and we think the 3rd grave is that of a young boy. We need every piece of evidence, and whole earth recovery will ensure that nothing, not even a fragment of bone, will be missed.
So, Jackie, with those bone flakes, what's the plan with those then?
Well, they'll go in the sample, because those little flakes there they've come adrift from that
scapula. You can see how delicate the facial bones are. Facial bones are quite thin and they damage easily. And if you're in acidic soils, which we are here, they will break apart more. Because this is a youngster, that's going to be even more fragile than normal. And it's been flattened. So altogether, there's lots of things not being very favourable here. But you can see I'm just starting to get tooth crowns showing there.
Yes.
I mean, look, you can just see here. Can you see there? That's an erupted tooth, but can you see that's a crown of a permanent tooth forming in a crown crypt. So it's inside the maxilla, that upper part of the jaw, but you can just, because it's worn through, you can see it forming. Yeah, so the idea is I'll gently pick all this off here so that we can see what is remaining in situ. And then all the soil will go to Naomi so she can run it through the sieves.
And do you think once you've got more of the teeth, you'll be able to get a better indication of the age?
Yeah, what I'll do is, and I can see the whole lot, I'll be able to. I think that might be where that tooth we found earlier might have dropped out from, look.
It's incredible how that had migrated down so far.
Yeah. You remember we found some bits of hand and foot bone completely out of place?
Yes.
Further down, I think there's been a small creature at some point. A mouse or a mole or something has made its way through the grave, and they take things with them. Even worms, worms can move things around.
As Trench 2 is cleaned, more of the circular feature is revealed and the interpretation is changing.
Matt, it's been a while since I've been to Trench 2 and I can see that you've cleaned it up, or you're cleaning it up beautifully. Any updates? What's going on?
Well, the cleaning process is really helping. As you can imagine, it really does start to show the archaeology. Now we're beginning to think as a structure.
So like a roundhouse?
Yes, and now what is really interesting, you see the red or pinkish stone in the middle there. Everyone is beginning to think it's heat affected.
Yeah.
It's now suggesting that it's a hearth.
Well, that would make sense, wouldn't it? Because most roundhouses would have a central hearth
That's right,
structure.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and what is making this more intriguing is that if this is now not a ditch, a ring ditch associated with a Saxon burial, it's potentially a gully for a roundhouse, or it's a footing for the wall. And along the outside, we have these intermittent potential post holes, which is not common.
Yeah, post holes on the outside.
On the
wall would
outside,
be...
no.
That's
No,
really
not at all.
interesting.
And during the cleaning process, all we're finding is Roman pottery.
Huh. So a Roman roundhouse?
Yes.
So presumably a Romano-British roundhouse in that case. So people potentially still living the way they were living before the Romans came, but just starting to use Roman material culture. That's incredible.
It's really interesting, exciting site.
Trench 2 is awash with pottery and dating evidence. No such luck in Trench 1, where precious little has been found since the knife. Jackie cannot afford to miss a single bone, and help has arrived in the form of a taphonomist.
Oh, Jackie.
Oh, hi.
Oh, my goodness.
Right.
This is coming up really nice now.
It is. We've been waiting for you to get here.
Oh, yeah, finally.
Lovely to see you as it is. We're nearly there with these now, but obviously what we've been doing is taking a series of samples to make sure we're recovering all the bone and all the osseous material. So we've got some from the feet, some from the hands, pelvic area, chest, and I'm just trying to finish off the skull area now.
This is amazing. It's so clear. The archaeology here is so clear.
So I have already got bags of stuff here for you to take away.
Okay.
Play with, because I know how you like water.
I do.
Organised water in a tank.
Organised
and that would be great to see what you get out of those.
Absolutely, because this soil, it's got quite a lot of clay to it.
It's claggy. It's claggy stuff.
Which is one of the best reasons for doing flotation, because there could be all kinds of small beads or artifacts, and of course it's about the recovery of as much of the skeleton.
Especially with this one, because this is a youngster. You know, this is a child in the 7 or 8 years old. So there's going to be lots of little bits of bone.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely right.
Have fun.
I'm gonna get these back to the tank.
With Naomi now on site, all the bags of soil taken from around the skeletons can now be processed. Using whole earth recovery will mean that not even a fragment of bone will get overlooked.
Just getting straight on with the soil. It's going through quite nicely, even though it's clay. And we are getting some nice results. So yeah, all good, all happy. Oh wait, yeah, my ears. My ears are a birthday present from a member of the team. So happy muddy birthday to me.
This is a replica of the Bentley Grange helmet found in Derbyshire in 1880.
As the day wears on, we are joined in the field by Anglo Saxon reenactors Weorod, as they share their practical expertise by demonstrating Anglo Saxon clothing, jewellery, everyday tools and weapons. They give me an idea. What better way to try to understand Anglo Saxon burial than by turning a living historian into a dead one? One of the tricky things about interpreting burials of the early Anglo-Saxon period is that you need really to reconstruct it in your mind's eye. So we've gone one better. We've got two people to help us reenact it. And this is really not like a modern burial, is it? Because we have a closed coffin. We don't see the dead person. We also don't see anything that they're buried with. You know, whereas this is all absolutely out on display for everybody to see and for everybody to be impressed by. But some of the things that, you know, this isn't as perfect as doing a full funeral, because we haven't thought of quite a few things, like how far have I travelled? How did I hear the news of the funeral? How long did you have to wait to gather all the people? And there's a story, isn't there, from the Viking Age of a king being buried temporarily and then dug so that everybody can gather for his funeral, and then dug up and the full funeral is done with a not entirely fresh corpse.
Yes.
And maybe that's why sometimes the shield would be put over the face.
Because of the length of time it takes to get the news out and to get the mourners in.
Yes, and to get all the grave goods. Did all these things belong to the dead person, or are some of them offerings brought by mourners? I think it's more likely that they did belong to the dead person because they are so consistent. The kit is always so consistent. Yes, so once our mourners have walked round and appreciated him, then how do we finally say goodbye to him?
Would there have been a party?
Yeah, I would have thought so. In which case, when we're excavating burial grounds, should we be thinking about feasting remains and so on? Usually we don't excavate a burial ground until the plough has revealed it, and so we've lost all of that surface.
We've lost all of the pottery shards, any glass shards, and
Yes,
also
and
some of the post holes if there would have been a temporary shelter.
Yes, absolutely. But we've given him a good send-off, and perhaps it's now time to reverently backfill, including a few pieces of cremated bone from the ancestors that maybe have been brought over from Eastern England or wherever cremation is still going on. So we'll sprinkle a little bit over him. He made a good age though, didn't he?
He did.
Yes,
he did.
Had a good life. As the site winds down for the day, Richard and Derek try to pull together what we know.
Richard, it's all changing. It's all changing. So what's happening in Trench 2 at the end of day 4?
The cleaning is fantastic. It's changed everything. You can see the circle beautifully. I think with a bit of dew on it in the morning, it'll bring out those colours.
Oh, glorious.
The circle is really clear. That big pink stone with the burning in the middle, not industrial, but not a ceremonial
But a half?
stone. But half.
Okay.
In the middle of the house.
Well, we were half right.
Half right. I like you did that. All with Roman pottery. The only material we're getting out of it is Roman. 2nd, 3rd century, maybe into the 4th. The thing is, we've got to find an entrance. You can see the circle all the way until about this point where there's a jumble of quite big stones. So potentially this is a late Roman roundhouse. Remember, houses aren't always rectilinear in the Roman period, as you know. They can be circular. Yeah. So this is possibly a Roman rural agricultural building with a hearth in the middle, a lot of pottery. Around it, there are coins being found. So everything we get here screams Roman at you.
Wow. Wow. Tomorrow's going to be a big day.
A really big day, but this is very unusual. So it doesn't change. It may not be 7th century burial, but it's unusual. This is rare.
Can't wait for tomorrow.
Should be good.
With clear evening skies, the team are able to sit round a fire and discuss the finer things in life. In a farmer's field deep in the Cotswolds, Time Team have joined forces with Operation Nightingale and Cotswold Archaeology to investigate an Anglo Saxon cemetery. How are you getting on with this one, Jackie?
Well, I've just finished cleaning it up, so all that's left to do now is to record it. So it's got to be photographed, recorded, and then we'll be lifting it. But because I can see everything now, I can see the teeth.
Yes, it's got this tiny little face.
Yes, bless it. It's been squashed, bless its little cotton socks. But you can see the teeth now. I can see what we've got here. We've got permanent molars there. Right. That's the first permanent molar. We've still got some of the milk teeth, and that gives us an age of about 7 to 9 years.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Really brings it home to you how much child mortality there was.
Yes, there was. I mean, we're very fortunate to live in an age where where this kind of thing certainly doesn't happen in the West.
No.
The way it used to have. But,
no, you have a child, you think that you're going to see it through to adulthood.
Yeah. But bless him, I think we've done them proud, getting them nicely cleaned up, ready for their fine... Well, I'm saying him, no. That was an automatic. I don't know. The only way we're going to get the sex on this one is to do the peptide analysis.
And we are going to do that, aren't we?
I believe we are, yes.
Excellent.
Yes,
that's
which
going
would
to be
good.
Really interesting.
Yeah. Good little bunny. Right, are you ready?
I am.
Okay. There.
Carefully lifting the skeleton, each grave is then photographed and geolocated. Once all the bones are lifted, Chris is left to record the grave cuts. But the work doesn't stop there.
If these get done, there are other things I'm going to sort out for you to have a go at. Right.
I don't know about you, Brian, but I find this very mindful, just picking away and cleaning these bits of bone.
It is, but you have to focus on what you're doing, because this process is as important as getting it out of the ground. It's focusing on the one job, which I think, for me, is really therapeutic.
Being a veteran, I find this whole thing very mindful, which means that I can totally absorb myself in the task. And it stops because I had a psychological injury, it stops the whizzing thoughts going around my head because I'm focused on what I'm doing. And that gives you this strange kind of calm, which I think is the whole point of mindfulness, really.
All right, let's
Cody
go.
is helping Naomi sieve soil samples.
Because you can't see everything by the naked eye, so I excavate with water, as I like to call it. So instead of a trowel, we have water. So shall we put the first
sounds
sample
good.
in? Okay. So I've already written down all the information.
Yes, that's
and
the chest.
This is the chest area, okay? And you said this was from a juvenile?
Yes, juvenile, about 7 to 10, I was told. So.
Oh, okay. It's an archaeological waterfall. So this is all going to go from nice, clean to not very quickly.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So we'll pour our soil in.
I think that's a tooth there.
Oh, yeah, well done.
Yeah, there we go.
Ah, yes, we've got an incisor. Lovely.
So Trench 1 is complete. And we now understand something about all 5 graves in close proximity there. But Trench 2 still holds some mystery. The clean-up there is now finished, and before digging any deeper, the features are recorded and then captured on camera.
Brilliant work, team. Well done for cleaning the excavation area. It looks absolutely stunning. So our next task is to start excavating. So if you grab the tools and we'll get going.
It's now all hands to the pumps in Trench 2. All available volunteers make their way over to start digging down through the broken limestone pavement, looking for dating evidence. For now, the tantalising pink stones that could be a hearth or could mark a grave remain untouched. So far, the topsoil has been very rich in finds.
It would. You know, it probably isn't, but the fact that she had a good look at it.
Katie, it's lovely to see you here again. You've been on many Operation Nightingale sites, haven't you? And I know you've only come for a visit, but no one ever comes to visit without being put to work. So you are now a pottery specialist, and I hope you're going to be able to tell me about the coins too. But essentially, what is in this tray is a selection of finds which I hope can tell us about Trench 2, because they're all from the topsoil of Trench 2 and around, and mostly that seems to be Roman. So I have washed a few things, and I was hoping you might be able to tell me a bit more about them.
Okay, well, straight away we've got some lovely examples of Oxfordshire vessels that are used for grinding. This is a mortaria.
They're quite worn down grits, aren't they?
Yeah.
So it's probably been used quite a lot for kind of liquidising food. Yeah, and so this is the Roman liquidizer.
It is, yep. And this is a flanged bowl, so you can see the flange coming over here. Very similar form, but different function. It's
quite a big bowl.
You've got some interesting imports here. So we've got some amphora, which would have come from southern Spain.
Oh, so that's a great big storage vessel.
Exactly, yeah. Would have had wine or sometimes dry food stuffs in them, olive oil, that kind of thing.
Nice.
And then this is some very nice little Samian-ware bowl. These are imported from Gaul, so France, Germany, that kind of area.
Tableware?
The nice stuff that you get out to impress your guests with, and would have lasted quite a long time as a result.
So it's looked after?
Absolutely, yeah.
So can we date the Roman activity here? Anything other than just the whole of the Roman period?
So these Oxfordshire products are 3rd, 4th century, so later Roman.
And I had a look at what's recorded on the Portable Antiquities Scheme database from the whole field, and there's about a dozen coins, but they've all got this really tight date of mid-4th century.
Yeah.
Do these fit in with that?
We've got two that are House of Valentinian, so that's 364 to 378, so that's fitting in with a lot, and then the other two are probably that 4th century
general.
They're in poorer conditions, so they're harder to identify.
But that shouldn't make us think that it's only there's only activity in the 4th century, should it? Because coins are just so much more common then.
They are. You get big spikes in two periods in the 4th century, and they fit in with what we've got here, is that peak coin loss that we see across sites across the country. But some of this pottery dates all the way through the Roman period. We can't really be specific, but then some of it is on the later side and some is on the early. So on the whole, we've nothing very tight dated. And we need more pottery from the features to give us that dating evidence.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the topsoil does not tell us as much as we would like about beneath. So there's no substitute but to keep on digging.
Yes.
And with all our diggers on hand, progress is rapid in all areas of Trench 2.
We just started late this morning excavating what we now think is a structure. We have Brady. She's pushing an intervention or a slot into what we think is either a gully or it's a construction cut for a wall, for a structure. Over here we have Ivan doing the same thing. He's actually on the west side, Brady's on the north. And we have Janine, who is within the interior of this structure, and she is excavating a post hole. Over here, we've got Alice and Carlos, and they're excavating something really quite interesting. It's a pot in situ, very fragmented, but it's actually quite difficult and delicate work.
I can hear it now. You hear that? Yeah. There we go. There we go. I think that's probably it. So I guess if we just work to that level, carry it along. It's a substantial thing though, isn't this? Is, you know, answering the questions about whether it was going to be a drip gully or something like that, but no, these are big wall footings, aren't they? Timber of salts, perhaps.
Yeah, I found a little bit of pot in there as well.
Good, good. So not natural?
No, a little bit of...
Nice.
I'm here with Henry, who's the landowner of the field that we're working in, and his family have been here for over 100 years. Henry, obviously you've got used to archaeologists being here because they've been here on and off in this field since 2016. But Operation Nightingale and Time Team are a slightly bigger thing altogether, aren't they? And I gather that you tuned into YouTube to watch us on the first evening, saw the quick tease, as we call it, and thought, hang on a minute, I'm going to have to join Patreon. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a look at the YouTube thing because I knew it was on, and I learned more from that 2 minutes on YouTube about what was going on in this field from you and Richard than I did spending 8 hours here for the previous week. Anyway, went on the Patreon and got in. They sort of asked for a bit of money. So anyway, this at 5:30 in the morning when I was clearly still hungover. So I found my wallet and paid up. Best thing I've ever done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and particularly because the subscriptions of that go to the financing of stuff like this, and it would never happen. And frankly, this is the biggest thing that's ever happened on this farm, ever.
Yeah, absolutely, and everybody who's paid their little subscription can feel a bit of a tiny sense of ownership because they've all helped to make this happen. From inside the circular feature, Janine is uncovering a lot of evidence.
Within this half section, I found an awful lot of varied items. We have a small piece of metal, different sorts of pottery, have an assortment of bone, both burnt, like that piece there, and not burnt. And this looks like part of an orbital. Part of the skull. We have mandible, which I've just taken out, another part of jaw with the teeth, possibly pig, possibly, but yeah, just a range of different sorts of bone, chunks of charcoal.
As Carlos exposes his blackened pot, he discovers bones within.
Carlos, I've been told you need my eyes.
Yeah, I've been keeping a little cache of bone here. You have got take a look at.
You have got some bone there. Right, what did you think it was?
Well, wasn't sure whether it was human or not.
Right, okay, well, it is actually animal. It's animal bone. That looks like it's an unfused distal metaphyses, so it's got the end of the bone isn't fused, but it's a part of long. Well, I think it could be a piece of radius actually, and then there you have got a tooth crown that's still forming. So I think what you've got here is a piglet. But I'm really intrigued by where you found it, because you have got a vessel here. You've got quite a lot of a vessel, haven't you?
Yes. Yeah.
But that has obviously been really highly fired. You know, it's gone really black and it's got all the red of the oxidised stuff on the outside. So this could be one of two things. It could actually be the leftovers in situ of somebody's cooking, you know, so something went wrong with somebody's dinner. Or this
probably me, that's what
or it's a deliberately placed deposit, because the Romans, I mean, this is a Roman feature, isn't it? This looks like Roman pottery.
Yes.
They did have a thing about piglet. They're quite fond of their piglet and roast pork and
what was that?
what
Did
have
it
you.
taste nice, or was there some rich element to it? Or
Well, there are. With the Romans, there's always two sides, isn't it? The ritual and the practical were always intermeshed. So there's a bit of two things. Yeah, it would have tasted good. But I think we've got a really interesting deposit here.
As the team pack up tools for another night, Richard and I catch up on the spoil heap.
I think it's going to be, at the moment, a timber structure with these timber uprights set into that quite deep circle going around. So that's good. There are pits all round which are producing a lot of Roman pottery We've had a couple of Roman hobnails inside, so I like to think of the Roman feet walking within these.
I bet the hobnails get pulled off by the mud, don't they?
Well, I think we've already lost a couple of diggers' boots to that this week as well. So, yeah, I think you could be right. But there's pots in this, there's hobnails. The two key things, and now we're really up against it with time because we've only really got one main digging day left, is to look at that thing in pink that we've been gazing at for days now and wondering what it is. I think it's a hearth, but we're going to have to look at that tomorrow. We've also got, where is the entrance? If we're talking a Roman building in a circular form, there's got to be a way in, and that's something we've got to find out.
Yeah. So there's so much to do tomorrow. We're going to really have our work cut out, aren't we? But the weather seems to be set reasonably fair, so fingers crossed by this time tomorrow we will have answered all the questions and not have gathered up too many new ones.
That is definitely the hope, but we'll see how that goes.
Lovely. Day 6 begins with everyone heading to Trench 2. Richard has decided to focus all efforts here as time is running out and there are too many unanswered questions.
Well, it's all go this morning, and we've got to work out exactly what's going on in the house, get more dating evidence, and finally bring the story of Roman Gloucestershire in this region together. Well, we found that pink stone on pretty much day 1, didn't we, when we started stripping this, and you could see something that just stood out up against the yellow and the dark circle of the structure, but something bright pink in the middle, and that was the thing that caused us to have all the different theories, whether it's a marker stone, whether it's an industrial furnace, or whether indeed it's a hearth of a house. And the only way you're ever going to find out is by excavating it, and we've had to not excavate it for 3 or 4 days now. But today's the time we actually get into it. But we'll lift that hearthstone just to confirm there was no burial at all, and it can only be a house. And that's going to be really interesting to see what exactly it is, and that will give us our story. But yeah, it's been frustrating not being able to see the blooming thing, has to be said.
The objective today is to get down to the natural, the base layer of limestone which demarcates the edge of any archaeological feature here.
My name's Bridie, and I was in the British Army in the Royal Military Police for 10.5 years. I think all of my generation grew up with Time Team, and I would watch it with my younger brother religiously. And you know, I'd go out into the garden and dig up the garden wall, and then get told off by my mum. So it's amazing to be part of something like this. It's just, you know, it's something you dream of, isn't it? And yeah, so it's fantastic, really.
You'll know instantly when you've got the geology. If you pull a stone out and it's orange, you know, like that. Yeah.
So this is just a very shallow post hole. Just tidying up really now. It's going to take me a few minutes. I can't take any more of these big stones out because it'll ruin the section. So I'm just tidying it up basically.
Mark has come to help Harvey finish cleaning up the pink stones, while Emma gets to the bottom of her pit.
This is looking really nice. Isn't this lovely? What have you had out of it?
Not too much out of the pit itself. We had a lot out of the ditch, but it's all in the bags there.
Right, okay, so you've got bits of... Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Let me just clean this up a little bit. Right. Well, that's interesting. So that's the outside bit, that's the mastoid process. And if I turn it round, that's the inside of your ear. This bit here, as it is. Petrus temporal from here. That is human bone. And it's together with bits of what look like cattle bone and maybe some sheep in there. Now that is interesting. You haven't broken it, it's not something you've broken.
Because it was coming out with the sheep and stuff, you know, I was like,
sure, now that's interesting. And it came out of the pit or the...
It came out of the ditch.
Right,
yeah.
okay.
How strange. Well, how did that get in there?
Added to the mystery of this place.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the kind of thing I would necessarily expect to see as a votive deposit of any sort, but I mean, what it does mean that it is somewhere in this region. I suspect another grave has been disturbed.
And it's sort of backfill, possibly.
Yeah, and it's just got in. It's got in with all the other animal bone and stuff. How odd. I'm going to have to go around and check everybody else's trays now, just to make sure we haven't missed anything else.
I'm sorry.
Don't worry, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. How would you know?
Matt is trying to make sense of one of the post holes.
If we get our eye in, you see, call it the gully coming round. You know the curve of this thing.
Yeah.
It's coming through there. I think that is somewhere is the edge.
Harvey now thinks we might be looking at 2 phases within the hearth.
Okay, so we're starting down here at the natural, and you can tell it's natural purely because you can hear that lovely scrape. It's nice and solid, it's not going anywhere, and there's no soil underneath this. So then you come up to this next level where we've got soil between the natural and then this deliberately placed hearthstone on the top. So you can see these 3 separate layers, but also 2 phases of the hearth. So we've got the original phase here where it's pink, then we've got a layer of soil which may or may not have been used to anchor these in position, and then we've got the final hearthstones on top with the burnt area. You can also see evidence of the burning on this particular bit of limestone here, where it changes colour from the grey up into the pink, and this was all filled with this kind of material here.
Naomi gets straight to work on the soil samples taken from the hearth.
Okay. So this is the first sign that I've had any carbonised grain, and that's coming out from above the hearth. There's not much of it. The whole sample is stuffed with material like this, so there's sort of this light fired clay, sort of building type materials.
Yes, that might have been used to maybe form the structure of the hearth. Yes.
Yeah, possibly.
Yes.
So
I don't know whether that would be dateable, but this surely must be.
I'm really, really hoping so. Really hoping so. And there's also bits of burnt animal bone, and then in the sample that was above the line of stones, I've got carbonised grain coming out as well.
That's fantastic. So that gives us a use. Because what I'd really like to know is not just what the date of this is, and to my completely untutored eye it looks Roman, but also is the hearth, I mean, you know how it's just off centre to the ring ditch, to the walls presumably of this house. Is it contemporary? Is it the hearth of the house? Or is it an industrial thing that's used in the ruins of the house like a kind of shelter? Because that's just as possible, but if it's got grain around it, then presumably it's to do with the feeding the family. We can't leave any stones unturned, and all eyes are now on Harvey, who finally has the green light to lift the hearthstones.
I think we're good to go now with carefully moving the stones. Harvey and Bryony, if you want to carefully move
I'm just going to rock this one backwards.
Yeah, just watch your fingers, be careful.
Oh, that's actually not too heavy. Yes, it is.
But what you can see underneath is more of this burnt deposit, which looks like it's half material. We'll excavate that once we've lifted the stones and see if there's anything else of interest within that deposit. Should we start to move the other stones?
Yeah. We're actually getting the charcoal coming through here as well. So that one goes there. That one goes.
It doesn't work, does it?
No.
Okay, we'll go for the third one. Even bigger this one, so watch your fingers.
Nothing underneath it, but...
No, that's excellent. So what we need to do now is excavate this layer underneath the stones. It looks like it's half material. And And just bear in mind, when you do excavate it, we might find further artefacts within it.
With the stones lifted, Jackie and Richard contemplate what we know about the hearth.
It seems on the face of it to be pretty clean and pretty clear.
Yeah, it is pretty clean around it, but I was intrigued by the apparent depth of material underneath those stones, because if they don't kind of fit quite snug on the surface they're on, you might expect a little bit of ash to build up underneath it, but that looks quite thick, so you might have an earlier phase of the hearth,
so
which
more
would be
complexity.
Yeah,
wonderful.
indeed.
Well, there we go. And I think, to me, one of those stones did look as though it was reutilised. It looked as though it had two flat faces and a curved edge. So I think that bears a little bit more examination as well. So all in all, an incredibly busy day. I think we've answered a lot of the questions, but we've got a load more still to ponder. And that's great as well, isn't it? Because it makes us think about how this house was used, how many phases it has, and how it relates to the burials up here, if indeed it does.
Yeah, the joys of archaeology.
Wonderful.
It's the final day of the excavation. As the digging winds down, everyone shifts to recording the archaeology. Every last grain of information is taken from the site.
Thought I'd come down and see what you got out of those samples we handed over the other day, Naomi.
Oh, well, they went through pretty well, to say how sticky and clay-like they were.
Nasty, isn't it?
But good results. As you can see in these two trays here, there's quite a few tiny bits of bone, but then some bigger bits, which will be a bit more diagnostic, I'm guessing. And really, really nicely, I've got 3 additional teeth just out of these 2 small samples.
So, of course, the teeth particularly are so useful to us because, you know, I've talked about how we can do ageing from how developed they are. You can do lots of different types of analysis on teeth, and particularly for youngsters, it's useful to be able to do that peptide analysis,
right? Yes,
which we can do now quite easily and non-destructively, which is always very important.
That's always a bonus.
For sexing a juvenile individual, because we can't sex them any other way other than by DNA. So I'm really pleased that we've managed to recover so many of these. It just makes our job so much easier.
Yeah.
This is the pelvis. That's bits of the pelvis there, and there. That's going to be the head of the femur, which you'd expect, and then you've got a first maxillary incisor that hasn't quite finished with its root formation, so that's useful for ageing. And in here you've also got, there's quite a lot of bits of vertebra there, and then bits of rib, lots of little bits of rib. Oh, that looks like the distal end of one of the upper arm bones.
But it just shows how much you can get, you know, from a wee bag of soil like that.
Yeah, and it's very worthwhile doing because it's the only way we can be sure we've collected everything. I've just come back from seeing Naomi, who's been going through those samples that we got out of the juvenile's grave. And we have now got more than enough teeth to be able to do that peptide analysis on, so we can get the sex of those young individuals, both our juvenile and that baby that we had.
How many teeth do you need?
Well, you only need the one, but you need to make sure that you've got enough to play with, if you see what I mean.
So one good tooth.
Yeah, you want one good tooth. So we can do that.
That's brilliant.
Which is excellent. Now, we were talking originally about, you know, the ones that were excavated previously. There was the prince, in inverted commas. There was also an infant and the female that we looked at. We were talking about getting peptides done on them as well. But actually, we no longer need to do that. Because if you remember, I'd heard people saying about, some samples were sent for DNA, but no results had come back. Well, I've been in touch with my esteemed colleague, Tom Booth at the Crick Institute.
Oh, yes.
And bless his cotton socks, he has sent me the results. They've actually got them.
Oh,
which is fantastic. So you'd be delighted to know that the prince is indeed a boy.
Oh, that's great.
Which is good. The infant, the 1.5-year-old infant, is also a boy.
Oh, and it might have been Roman.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's also confirmed by sexing of the female as female, which is good.
That is lovely.
Yeah, that's good. But we've also got some little bit of information about the genetic relationships between them.
Wow,
From
ADNA?
From the ADNA, yeah. They're not finished yet, but they're all of the same matrilineal line.
Wow.
Okay? They are not first degree relatives, so it's not like siblings and mother and children. They're not second degree ones, so they're not like great grandparents or cousins, but they haven't yet ruled out third degree.
Right.
So there could be a great grandparent and child, for instance. So they're still working on that. But that's much more than we thought we were going to get, because it takes so long to get ancient DNA, and nobody'd had any results back yet, but I thought it was worth asking Tom.
That's brilliant. And you know, I just had this funny little emotional reaction almost in that when we've been talking about this infant, which is quite a cold term, it's quite a technical term. And when you actually say that was a little boy, and we never get that. We always just have infant, and it's so depersonalising. You say, oh, that was a little boy, that was a real human.
A toddler.
Yeah,
It would have been a toddler.
Yeah, that's a bit, catches in the heart a bit, doesn't it? But as the ink is nearly dry on the recording sheets in Trench 2, one of the Operation Nightingale veterans gets a strong signal on his metal detector near the spoil heap.
I thought I'd just do a bit of detecting on this side. Found a couple of coins around the spoil heap and stuff, and then this signal came up. So, yeah, if it is what it is, you know, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. Yeah, it looks like it's been folded.
Hello.
Hi.
So what do we think we've got? Right. Oh Lord. We need to check what's on the geophysics here at this point as well. We can't really get involved in uncovering it, because who knows what might be with it, and the preservation certainly at this stage looks quite good. I think we've seen enough to positively identify it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very shallow, isn't it? I mean, it's right down on the bottom of the topsoil.
Yeah, it was underneath the brush.
That's almost in a kind of emergency situation.
Yes, on the final day.
On the final day.
So what we'll do is photograph it as it is, put a little scale in, North Arrow. We'll GPS it in.
Yeah, so we can compare what's on the geophysics.
Yeah, that's correct. And then we'll carefully cover it over, and it'll have to be dealt with quite quickly.
Quite quickly, yes. So, there's further work to be done on the cemetery. But what can we conclude about the circular structure in Trench 2? Hi, Richard.
Hello, hello.
So, end of day 7, would you believe?
We've survived.
And it really is the end of the road, really, isn't it? Yeah, half the team's gone home. This is as far as we're going to get. Yep. So where are we at? What happened to our grave-shaped
So I can't remember when you were last here, but there were 4 prominent pink stones.
Yes.
Was that the last time? Yeah. Okay. So they were lifted. We thought at that point it was probably a hearth for the centre of the circular Roman building, and that's exactly what we now think it is. So we lifted those up. The 4 stones came out, and there was quite a thick layer of an earlier hearth. So there are a couple of phases of hearth, but I don't think you've seen this over here now.
No. The last time I saw this, it was all extremely confused.
I think we're there now with this one. It looked initially, though, that it was a hearth. I now think this is part of an oven, maybe something like a little bread oven that is incorporated within the circular structure, so they are at the same time. This is part of that early Roman building.
So it's kind of up against the wall, the
incorporated
timber wall,
within it, that's right. So you've got these stones, which are one side of it.
Yep.
And running along just past your feet. Can you see where it's also continuing?
So that big lump of yellow stuff is protecting the wooden wall from the heat of the oven?
Yeah, so that's mortar. So that's part of a superstructure of some sort of oven feature.
So that would dome over the whole thing, keeping all the heat in. So, yeah, so you're making your fire here, and then you're sliding your undoubtedly a pizza.
Pizza in this, yeah. I think I can always smell it in here.
Yes. And that's cooking in the covered space.
Yeah, I think so.
That's marvellous.
But it wouldn't be this site if we didn't have some more confusion at the end.
Oh. Well, this was where you thought the entrance might be.
We did think this is where the entrance was, and it still probably is, but it's not as obvious as before. We've still got this cobbled surface.
Okay, so we're standing in the entrance.
Yep, we're in the entrance. Nice packed post hole.
Yes, I can imagine
upstanding posts coming through
yes.
with the limestone packing it. That looked great. We did have another corresponding one here, which was perfect.
Okay.
And is no longer.
Is that shooting off that way somewhere?
It seems to be. We haven't got it all at all. So. No, it's a good question. The answer is, I don't know.
Oh dear.
So having had
Come on,
really
it's
neat
4:45.
4:45 on the last day, the answer is we don't know and we just don't have the time.
So we don't quite understand everything here.
No.
But really, in essence, what do we know about this house?
Well, I mean, we do know quite a bit, which I'm pretty confident with. And the obvious thing is the thing we've been looking at all week, which is that bright pink element in the middle, and that's the hearth. That would have been the fireplace in the centre of the building. The key things from the structural point of view, we start off with the two big post holes either side of the hearth, which have had huge timbers, which have been the load-bearing structure for the rest of the building. Okay. The other key thing that we've seen throughout the week is this big circle running around here with a cut into the limestone, the ditch that formed the footings of the wall.
Yes, and that's always been consistently really well accurately cut, hasn't it?
This is going to be timber planks that they're tongue and groove. They're probably about that wide, and they're timber uprights running all the way across the circle, set into this trench and then packed down hard with limestone. There is no gaps between these planks. It's really tight. And it would have formed actually quite a snug yes. circular building. You've got a cobbled surface on the entranceway of the building because of a muddy floor. This is the sort of thing you need to put your feet on and not slip as you go into the building.
So this is almost like a doormat?
Yeah, a Roman doormat if you like. So you've got the entranceway, you've got the circle, and then you've got these timber post holes with lovely packing, which have had a porchway leading you in to the cobbles and then to your fireplace.
And what about the roof?
The final thing is the roof. We've not found any stone roof slabs, we've not found any terracotta slabs. We are looking at a pitched, thatched roof. So almost like a conical roof sitting on top of the timbers and completing this building.
So we could almost be standing in the eaves?
I think we could, protected just before we get into the house and maybe make use of the oven inside.
You know, it's the only day really that we've had where we don't actually need shelter from the rain and a nice warm fire.
There's irony, but I think this would have been a really useful structure on the early days in the week, and I think it must have been a really snug building in the Roman period.
It has been an amazing week, hasn't it, Richard? And it's been so lovely to see all the different teams coming together. We've had the Operation Nightingale veterans and the volunteers and the Cotswold team who've been absolutely lovely, and a few of us from Time Team. And everybody's just really got on and had this single objective to understand what's going on in this field.
It's sort of mission accomplished, but it sort of isn't. But in a good way, in a good way.
But I think Trench 1, you know, we looked at that and we thought, that's simple, we know what that is.
Yeah.
We opened it up, we excavated the features, it was what we thought it was going to be, and it all seemed to work like clockwork. You know, us archaeologists, we're professionals, we know what we're doing, we come here and we do it.
Straight from the geophysics, straight from the previous excavation, 4 graves, easy.
So we come to Trench 2, perfectly simple geophysics. I remember saying to you, well, we'll do that complex trench later on in the week when we've knocked off this one. And then it became crazy, didn't it?
Yeah. And it just shows how wrong you can be just by us looking at the geophysics, and how putting a spade in the ground and opening it up can change absolutely everything. And we're learning so much more, really, from what we've done here than perhaps what we were expecting.
And I think it was such a good experience for the Operation Nightingale team as well.
To see it's all right. Yeah. To change your opinion, and you base it on the evidence. Yes. And we're finding material that will change what you think, and you'd go with that, and don't let your preconceptions, with the geophysics made it very clear what we thought we were going to get, and it was nothing like that at all.
But now they've turned into something quite extraordinary that I think is going to be cited in many learned journals for years to come.
I hope so, and I think it was great for them to see that we're prepared to have a new theory all the time and just see where the evidence leads us, and that can change, and that's fine, just to keep thinking about what it is. I think this is a really truly memorable feature that we've uncovered, which is giving us probably some very important information about the Gloucestershire Cotswolds.
Absolutely, and the fact that our two trenches are in the same field on the same soil, it just shows us that one little trench, one little evaluation can never really tell you about the whole of a field. Goodness knows what lies under the rest of it. The geophysics is just the start.
If I was asked, where's the Roman building, and draw a Roman building in this field, that would not have been it. No. But it's more exciting because of that.
Join Time Team on Patreon to access exclusive 3D models, masterclasses and behind-the-scenes insights.